NBA Today was sponsored by American Motors, where you get a good deal and a good deal more. And by Money Mutual of New York. It's good to have money in your future. NBA Today was produced by CBS Television Sports on the #1 network for sports.
Kojak deliberately marks himself a crooked cop in order to trap a wily narcotics dealer. Telly Savalas stars as Kojak, Wednesday night at 10, 9 Central Time, here on CBS.
Pork chops, lamb chops, baked potatoes, meatloaf, hamburgers, 2 tomatoes. Come on! Get a bucket of chicken, looking good, have a barrel of fun. Goodbye, hello.
Kids love my hot Kentucky Fried Chicken and fixin', so come on and break up that old dinner time routine.
America loves what the Colonel could, a big licking good time, barrel of fun.
Men who work on their feet all day appreciate the comfort of Red Wing work shoes. They come in so many shapes and sizes, they're a perfect fit for most any pair of hard-working feet. The fact is, Red Wing work shoes are so comfortable that come 5 o'clock, some of our customers forget to take them off.
For real fit and comfort, come to the Red Wing shoe store nearest you. Check our listing in the white pages. Energy Crisis Special at 6.
CBS Television Sports welcomes you to Super Bowl VIII. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jack Whitaker speaking from Rice Stadium in Houston, Texas, where the Miami Dolphins and the Minnesota Vikings are about to play the 8th Super Bowl game to decide the professional championship of football. Here in Houston today, we have a temperature of 52 degrees, the humidity at 80%, and a fog has sprung up around the city. But conditions right now in this handsome stadium are good for the 71,882 people who have showed up. This game is a sellout. Down on the artificial turf now, both teams are taking their warm-ups. The Miami Dolphins, the defending champions, in an unprecedented 3rd straight visit here to the Super Bowl. A big, confident, disciplined team, an armored tank hidden in blue and orange jerseys. Their opponents, the Vikings, visiting the Super Bowl for their 2nd time. White jerseyed with purple trim, they're a potent mixture of offensive finesse and defensive power. Indeed, such are the attributes of these two ball clubs that most people think Super Bowl VIII might be the best of them all. The NFL Today presents Super Bowl VIII. Sponsored by the B.F. Goodrich Tire Company, makers of the Fixer. It's going to make the name Goodrich a lot easier to remember.
I'm Patrick Ross, president of the B.F. Goodrich Tire Company. No tire is really puncture-proof. Not really. Not ours, not anyone's. Something makes tires go flat. Something besides the axe blades and tire tortures you see on TV. That's why we invented a whole new kind of radial tire. We call it the Fixer. It's made with a unique expanding liner that's actually designed to seal most punctures in the tread up to 1/4 inch in diameter. This year, it seems like almost everybody's finally featuring radial tires. But nobody's making a tire like the Fixer. The Fixer, the first steel radial tire designed to fix itself, and the most advanced steel radial B.F. Goodrich has ever made. Not Goodyear, Goodrich. It's going to make our name a lot easier to remember.
The golden lifesaver from Goodrich. We call it the Fixer.
Before a really big game, I like to come down here and meditate. Get myself into the proper mood. You just gotta be the best if you intend to make the Hall of Fame. In the fabulous Hall of Fame, every name you see here has answered the call of fame. Here on the walls are the records, here for the whole world to see.
Oh, hi, Sonny.
This is my great-grandfather, Incredible. He invented the fumble. How did you do it, great-grandfather?
Clean living, Sonny.
Good like it is, Scratty.
No drinking.
Right.
No smoking.
Right.
And when you're in training, don't fool around with the ladies.
Right.
You footballs out there listening to me, don't mess around while you're in training. You'll get shin splints.
Right.
Lose your breath.
Right.
Fall down.
Right.
Each football historically is a champ. Back to the days of Walter Camp. Here on the walls are the records, here for the whole world to see. Hey, what's kicking, Freddie? And this is my uncle, Eddie Ball. Jim Thorpe once drop-kicked him 75 yards for a field goal. Yep, won the game, too. Never forget it. Really got a boot out, old Jim. Heck of a drop kicker, that boy. Thanks, Eddie. You can have your I formation, T formation, single wing, and the wishbone. What this game really needs is a drop kick. Bring back the drop kick. Need a football named Persky, slightly squashed by Bronco Nagurski. Here's old Timothy still fit as a fiddle. Set those records with Y.A. Tittle. And with no artificial turf either. What happened to the grass? Bring back the grass. Bring back real mud. And what about the flying wedge?
The water boy.
In the fabulous Hall of Fame, every name. The walls are the records, here for the whole world to see. The records belong to them, but football belongs to you. It's Steve Owen, and this is my great-uncle Ball Moose. He was once kicked up San Juan Hill. Charge! Crazy Legs and McElhaney really went to town. And how about 32, our movie star Jim Brown? If it's records you want, we got 'em, etc. ad infinitum. Papa Hallis, say what a man. They made it gel, the immortal Lombardi and our Bert Bell. Here on the world are the records, here for the whole world to see. The records belong to them, but football belongs to you and me. Yes, I really get inspired visiting all these famous footballs, players, and of course the coaches. Making the Hall of Fame is not easy for a coach. The percentages are all against him.
Percentages.
You've gotta play percentages.
15% of passes tried.
Or wind up on the other side. And when the whole world's against you, who's your only friend? The center. When you're kicked for a field goal and you hit the crossbars, who cradles you in his forgiving arms? The center. And when the quarterback keeps repeating, hut, 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 and you realize you're in trouble because he's got the hiccups, who can you turn to? Right. Yes, sir, we're two against the world. Two against the world. Two against the world, my buddy and me. The football field of life may be sunny,
Or snowy, or muddy.
but no one can come between me and my buddy, 'cause we're two against the world. Actually, everybody connected with the game is important. The owners, the band, cheerleaders, they all deserve to be here in the Hall of Fame. But those who deserve to be here most are you, the football fans.
trade your wife, they'll let you spend the rest of your life watching the football game.
And here in this empty frame, well, who knows? One day, you just might see old Freddie up there in the fabulous Hall of Fame. Every name you see here has answered the call of fame. Here on the walls are the records.
Okay, Freddie.
Here for the whole world to see. The records belong to them, but football belongs to you and me.
We're radio tigers and we're here to
Our new radio tire versus this Sherman tank in a test of strength.
I've got just one word for 1974. Radial.
Funny, isn't it? All of a sudden, everybody's introducing radial tires. A tire B.F. Goodrich has been making for 9 years. But this year, we've invented a whole new kind of radial we call the Fixer. It's lined with a unique expanding sealer that's actually designed to fix most punctures in the tread up to 1/4 inch in diameter. After all, no matter how tough tires look on TV, in real life, people still get flats. The Fixer. The first radial tire designed to fix itself from Goodrich, not Goodyear. Goodrich. It's going to make our name a lot easier to remember.
The golden lifesaver from Goodrich. We call it the Fixer.
In the beginning, we called ourselves Quality Quartz. Now, when we became Quality Inns, our name wasn't the only thing that changed. Quality Inns. Over 32,000 rooms in over 320 cities.
Gentlemen, we're about to see the final event of the Ford Punt Pack. A nice hand for all of the winners.
I'm Patrick Ross, president of the B.F. Goodrich Tire Company. You know, no matter how tough tires look on TV, in real life, they can still go flat. No tire can stop all punctures. But we've invented a new kind of tire we call the Fixer. It's made with a unique expanding liner that's actually designed to seal most punctures in the tread up to 1/4 inch in diameter. You know, we've been telling people about radial tires since 1965, and now everybody else has finally decided to start talking about them too. But nobody's talking about a radial tire like the Fixer, the first steel radial designed to fix itself, and the most advanced radial Goodrich has ever made. Not Goodyear, Goodrich. It's going to make our name a lot easier to remember.
The golden lifesaver from Goodrich. We call it the Fixer.
Delco battery!
After lots of time and lots of miles, you get to know your car. You want it to be trouble-free, no matter where you are. That's why you'll find the Delco sign everywhere you go. For easy starts and quality parts, it's the name to know. Well, the more you know.
Delco!
The more you want Delco.
Delco.
The more you know.
Delco mattress.
The more you want Delco.
We've expanded our facilities in CBS Control for Super Bowl VIII. We're located in a tent just outside of Rice Stadium. And here I'll be joined by my colleagues, all of whom worked NFL games during the 1973 season. We thought you might be interested in their remarks about today's game. Let's begin with the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Lindsey Nelson.
Well, sometimes the big battles are won up front, and I think that the Miami offensive line has greater incentive because of Larry Zonka running up their backs. I like Miami by about that much. Tommy Mason?
Lindsey, can the specialized talents of Miami, with Zonka inside, Morrison kick outside, overcome the overall talents of Minnesota? My heart's with Minnesota, but I like Miami. Frank Gruber, what do you think?
Well, Tommy, you know the Vikings front four gets most of the publicity, but I like the Dolphins guys in the trenches, the no-names. They're second in the league in quarterback traps this year. I think they'll give Tarkin and Fitz Miami. Irv Cross, what about you?
Oh, Frank, Miami and Minnesota both run well-coordinated zone defenses. The Dolphins' secondary is tough, but I'm picking the Vikings in an upset. Jack Buck, what do you think?
Irv, I can't go along with you, and everybody's talking about Zonka, but I think the key to this game and the Miami victory is the fact that Mercury Morris is going to be able to run outside against the outside linebackers of Minnesota. So I'm on Don Shula's bandwagon. Pete Retzlaff, what about you?
Well, despite the zone defenses today, both teams have the talent to use that long bomb effectively, and both teams do. In that department, none better than a healthy Paul Warfield, but that is the question. I like Minnesota. Dan Kelly?
Pete, I think that even though Miami won the Super Bowl a year ago, they've had a great season this year. Some of us underestimate them still. I think they're going to win. I think they may even win very big here today against Minnesota. I know Tom Brookshire will disagree, though.
Dan, I do disagree. The Minnesota front four, the down four on defense, will be under heavy pressure, and they must stop Larry Zonka's inside running ability. I think that Alan Page must play as a Super Bowl player on Super Bowl Sunday, and I think he will. I pick Minnesota very close. How about you, Wayne Walker?
Well, Brooksy, I'll be watching the linebackers, and if young Jeff Seaman can stop Zonka up the middle, I think the Vikings will win. Timmy Brown, how about you?
Wayne, I feel that both Miami and Minnesota are pretty equal offensively and defensively. I'm looking for the special teams to play a deciding factor in this game. I played for Don Shula, and I know how much work he stresses on the special teams, so I'm going to go with Miami. How about you, Dick Stockton?
Well, Timmy, Cox and Upremian are really equal when it comes to field goal percentage, but I think Miami has the big edge in punting. Larry Seipel has averaged 10 yards more than Mike Eyeshot of the Vikings in the playoffs, so I've got to go with the Dolphins. You, John Sauer.
Well, I'll be watching this game from the viewpoint of the coaches. I don't expect any great surprises at the outset. I think both teams will probably go with what has been successful for them during the year. I think maybe Minnesota will win this game.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. That's 7-5 Miami. I'll pick Minnesota to make it 7-6, and the ball game to be just about that close. Also joining us on today's broadcast will be the man who led the Green Bay Packers to the first 2 Super Bowl victories, Bart Starr.
The CBS production crew and I thought that it might be a good idea for me to spend today reporting from the control truck, where through the use of multiple pictures provided on the surrounding monitors, we hope to give you a better idea of the overall strategy of this game. On occasion, during the telecast, we will select a couple of isolated camera shots which will help to illustrate the strategy being involved. Since, as in football, this production crew obviously goes into a telecast with a game plan. By the way, Tom Brookshire is going to join me at halftime for our final edition of NFL Playbook entitled Game Plan, which I think is a fitting climax to this great series. The strategic moves of these 2 fine football teams will provide the core of this halftime feature. Most of you people have heard about the Miami Dolphins' 53 defense, the 53 being for number 53, Bob Matheson, here rushing the passer from the outside. He is the key to this defense, and here you see him in another position, inside, dropping back to his area of pass coverage responsibility. He's all over the field and does a great job. Because the Miami Dolphins have the finest 1-2 running punch in the National Football League, their game plan strategy is rather simple. They stuff Larry Zonka down your throat, they send Mercury Morris either inside or outside, and they throw sparingly. Speaking of Larry Zonka, you're going to see him here against the Oakland Raiders a couple of weeks ago, making a great cut and going back up inside. And when this fella carries the football, he is extremely tough to bring down. You see a great tackle here by Tatum, but he still lugs him for another 5 yards. We talked about the threat of Mercury Morris. Once Zonka has softened them up inside, you have the elusiveness of this sprinter going to the outside. He's also a fine inside runner, but you see the threat of him here to the outside. Over the past several years under Coach Bud Grant, the Minnesota Vikings have employed a very basic game plan, both offensively and defensively. However, in the 2 games leading up to the Super Bowl game, they departed radically from that, as you're going to see here in a couple of razzle-dazzle plays. In this first one, notice that John Gilliam is here in the slot, and that Tarkington is sending his left halfback, Chuck Foreman, in motion. He's going to hit him on a rather simple play, but because the Cowboys don't adjust that rapidly to it, it's a very effective play, picking up 6, 7, 8 yards or so. Now notice that Gilliam is also in the slot on this play, the same position that you saw him on the previous throw to Foreman. Now watch what Tarkington does here. The Cowboys are now aware of Foreman, so Tarkington sprints out, has created single coverage on the backside, and throws the ball as far as he said he could that particular day. A beautiful post pattern to John Gilliam, which at that time was a mighty big score for the Vikings. Here's another play that caught the Dallas Cowboys a little bit by surprise because it involves a double fake. Fran just faked to his fullback. Now he fakes a reverse to Carroll Dale. And now turns and throws back to the fullback, Oscar Reed, who is all alone out in the flat. A very well conceived play and beautifully executed. On Wednesday of this past week, Paul Warfield suffered a pulled hamstring muscle in practice, and as of right now, no one really knows how well he's going to be able to run. If he can run well, however, you can bet your life that Bob Greasy is going to go to him when he needs him, as he does here in this film a couple of weeks ago against the Oakland Raiders. This is a quick post up the middle. Greasy hits him right on the money. And once Paul Warfield catches the ball, you can see why he is such a threat. Just watch. We've only touched on a few of the individual stars and groups that are present here today. Pat Summerall will get into more later, for example, the Minnesota Viking defense. But from this position, as we mentioned to you earlier, we hope to keep you really up to date.
Back in 47, a young man come in here all hepped up about some new tubeless tire from Goodrich. Goodrich, I said. Why, you need a new name more than anybody needs a new tire. Threw him out. Darned if a few years later, tubeless tires weren't all the rage. Coincidence, I said. Except in 65, he come in with their newfangled radial tire. Threw him out again. Now in 74, every tire company in tarnation screaming and yelling about their radial tire. I'll tell you, that young man shows up again, I'll buy anything he's got.
Well, Mr. Perkins, you may get your chance. We've just invented a new kind of steel radial tire called the Fixer. It's actually designed to fix most punctures in the tread up to 1/4 inch in diameter. The Fixer from B.F. Goodrich, not Goodyear. It's going to make our name a lot easier to remember.
Mr. Perkins, I don't know if you'll remember me, but
I'll buy it.
You'll buy it?
The Golden Lifesaver from Goodrich. We call it the Fixer.
That look from high above Rice Stadium here in Houston, Texas. On an overcast day, but the good news a few moments ago, no rain in sight. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ray Scott. By my side, Pat Summerall. I'd like to spend just a few seconds and talk about incentives involving these two teams today. Many of the Miami Dolphin players the last few days have been quoted as saying that they want to be known as the greatest team that has ever played professional football. And it's entirely possible that the Dolphins are one game away from that sort of recognition. For the Minnesota Vikings, 5 or 6 players perhaps are playing in their last year of competition, and I think have a great incentive to try and go out a Super Bowl winner. Fran Tarkenton, the Vikings quarterback, I know, wants to erase that label that has been pinned on him by many, that he is a loser, and he has a great chance today to erase that label. So as I see it, Pat, two teams with a tremendous amount of incentive, and I would be very surprised if we do not have a very close game.
I think it's going to be a great football game, perhaps the best Super Bowl of all, Ray. We've talked an awful lot about the men who are involved with the handling of the ball, the quarterbacks, the receivers, the runners, the kickers, and what have you. But in my opinion, I think this football game will be won in the place they call the pit, in the offensive and defensive lines of both teams. There'll be great matchups. Gary Larson will face perhaps the biggest challenge of all the Minnesota defenders because he's playing across the line from one of the finest offensive linemen ever to play pro football, Larry Little, the all-pro guard from the Miami Dolphins. That'll be one we'll be watching. Mick Tingelhoff will have the responsibility of chasing, perhaps, Nick Buoniconti, number 85, the fine middle linebacker of the Dolphins. You'll recall in the Dallas-Miami game, the Cowboys set out to contain Buoniconti. They did that. They were able to defeat Miami. Minnesota faces that same challenge, in our opinion. The other matchup that we'll be watching particularly is the one that involves Alan Page against Bob Kuchenberg, the other offensive guard from Miami. Kuchenberg is playing with a pin and a broken arm, and he faces Alan Page, an all-pro tackle for so many years, and perhaps the quickest of all the defensive tackles in football. There are many more, and we'll be watching all of those as they battle in the pit this afternoon.
Now, they say that there can't be any surprises in this game today. Well, we've already had one before it starts. All week long, the Vikings have insisted that offensive guard Milt Sunday would be ready to play. Unfortunately, it has not worked out that way. A few moments ago, we found out Milt Sunday's been taken off the roster. Frank Gallagher will start in his place at offensive right guard. Steve Lawson has been added to the roster. This could make a change.
Certainly could, and based on watching Paul Warfield in the warm-up,
I would be very surprised if he is 100% effective. He was limping noticeably. As you know, he pulled a hamstring muscle in the workout on Wednesday. He has not worked out since then, only to jog. It didn't appear to us that he could let it out in the pregame warm-up.
So as far as we know, physically, those are the only things that we should report to you, any different from what you've already read and heard about all week long. A tremendous air of excitement here. We're all anticipating this game this afternoon. We fully believe that this is a game that is going to live up to its title of Super Bowl. So we're delighted you're with us on Super Sunday, and we'll be ready for the start of Super Bowl 8 right after this word from your local station.
A murder witness turns to McGarrett when the killers decide to make him their next victim on Hawaii 5-0 Tuesday night.
This is the longest, lowest, wildest Mazda ever. The exciting new RX-4 hardtop with luxury features and something else.
The right engine for today's driving, the rotary engine, and only Mazda has it. It's lightweight, efficient, and quiet, yet it delivers the kind of power you're used to in a larger car. Mazda's all-new RX-4 hardtop, a sensibly sized car with the rotary engine balance of performance and economy.
Harvey George Dunn, bottler, started to work for the Olympia Brewery on March 23, 1916. Harvey Dunn, supervisor of the cellars, retired in June of 1963. For a while, Harvey and his wife talked about moving to California, but Elsie said she'd miss her friends, and Harvey never said it, but he figured he'd miss the brewery. Every now and then, Harvey will be back. He'll be over at the brew house.
I'd enjoy some cake. Upside-down cake. Amazing! Western Airlines, the only way to fly.
It takes all kinds today at 5 KNX.
CBS Television Sports proudly presents Super Bowl. Today, the Minnesota Vikings meet the Miami Dolphins. Sponsored by Ford and your Ford dealer. The closer you look, the better we look. And by Boeing, getting people together on the 747. And by Goodyear, makers of the custom Steel Guard radial tire. And by Sears Die-Hard batteries, with starting power you can count on.
Now for a last-minute report to CBS Control, Jack Whitaker.
Thank you, Ray. I have Pete Retzlaff here and Wayne Walker, who have been on the field watching the warm-ups. Wayne, you were over at Minnesota. Any last-minute pregame information?
Well, first of all, I saw a lot of grim faces out there, Jack. You know, the emotion factor in a game this big is something the coaches really have to watch out for, because the losers in this game in previous years have said that they may have been up too high and were too tight for this contest. And Bud Grant tried to hold that down a little bit. He said his team was loose and relaxed all week long. He said he thought they were that way coming into today's game, but like I said, I saw some grim faces.
Grim faces. All right, Pete, how about the Dolphins?
I think it's pretty much that way, Jack. As you know, it's a game of emotion and skill. It's the type of emotion which dictates how well the skills are going to be used in a game like this. Miami, a bit more cavalier in practice, perhaps, than the Dolphins during the week. And then all of a sudden, a half hour ago, that was dramatically reversed. They became very quiet and subdued. So, it's going to be a good ball game either way.
All right, back to the broadcast booth and Ray Scott.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the defensive unit of the Minnesota Vikings. First, the front four. Number 81, Carl Eller. Number 77, Gary Larson. Number 88, Alan Page. Number 70, Jim Marshall. Introducing now the linebackers. Number 60, Roy Winston. Number 50, Jeff Seaman. Number 58, Wally Hilgenberg. And now the defensive backfield. Number 43, Nate Wright. Number 20, Bobby Bryant. Number 23, Jeff Wright. Number 22, Paul Krause. And now, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, Bud Grant, members of his staff, and the remaining members of the Minnesota Vikings. And now, the defending Super Bowl champions, the Miami Dolphins. First, here are the interior linemen. Number 79, Wayne Moore. Number 67, Bob Kuchenberg. Number 62, Jim Langer. Number 66, Larry Little. Number 73, Norm Evans. And now, the receivers. Number 88 is Jim Mandich. Number 86, Marlon Briscoe. Number 42, Paul Warfield. Here is the backfield. Number 22, Mercury Morris. Number 39, Larry Zonka. Number 12, Bob Greasy. The head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Don Shula, his staff, the remaining members of the Miami Dolphins. Ladies and gentlemen, we take pleasure in introducing Charlie Pride to sing America the Beautiful. We will have Charlie Pride in just a moment. We'll be ready for the kickoff of Super Bowl VIII in just a moment.
This Magnavox Videomatic Color TV does what no TV ever did before Magnavox. Lights! Magnavox adjusts its own picture to changing room light automatically, constantly, to give you bright, true color. Plus, solid state and one-button tuning. Videomatic Color TV, a Magnavox exclusive. What a difference. Watching a Magnavox.
Five cars, 5 dead batteries. But we're going to start all 5, all at once, with one battery. A 2-year-old Sears Die-Hard battery. The Die-Hard, with extra power to start your car when most batteries won't. It lives up to its name. Sold only at Sears.
The cost of carrying the things you need is always a part of the price you pay. So for Burlington Northern to carry coal to Chicago, or cornflakes to Denver, or freezers to Seattle cheaply, we have to be a modern, efficient railroad network. That helps hold shipping costs in line and helps hold down your prices. Burlington Northern, from the Great Lakes to the Pacific, from Canada to the Gulf. The better we get, the better it is for you.